Hey YouTube, Nurse Marc here. So I was at the gym the other day, and I heard these two lads talking about creatine. One of the things that they were discussing was how unsafe creatine is. They're talking about the bad side effects, like, it causes hair loss, it causes fat gain, it's a legal steroid, and it's going to shut your testosterone down. And I kind of sat back and thought to myself, oh man, I really didn't know people thought these things about creatine still. And it just kind of shows how much the misinformation about creatine is just perpetuated regardless of the evidence. So let's discuss creatine, the myths, the facts, and maybe a little bit of a nursing experience with regards to creatine, and whether or not it's safe to use. Hey, quick edit. If you already know what creatine is and you know how it works in the body, you don't really want to hear me blather on about how they associated creatine with kidney failure and the science behind that, skip ahead to this point, all right, and I'll talk about all the other myths associated with creatine. So first you got to kind of understand what the heck creatine is in the first place. So creatine, not the supplement, but just creatine itself, is found in tons of different places. One, it's found in your muscles, it's found in your liver. We also consume it with stuff like red meat products and fish. Creatine is a naturally forming substance that our body makes by itself, and we also ingest. So creatine isn't some synthetic thing that's been made in a lab to make you bigger, stronger, faster. It exists in nature, right? So creatine itself is not dangerous. So when we're talking about like supplementing with creatine, is there some danger with supplementing with creatine? There's not a lot of evidence that says that there's anything wrong with taking creatine. In fact, it's the most researched substance or supplement on the market today. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that have researched creatine, none of which can conclusively come forward and say that there's any kind of damage. In the exception of if you have a pre-existing kidney issue, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but if you don't have kidney damage, it's pretty much one of the safest supplements that you can take. So why would you even take creatine in the first place? Good question. So when you take in creatine, whether that be from a steak, from fish, or as a supplement, your body digests it, absorbs it, sends it to your muscles. All right, your muscles then convert that into an energy source while you're doing anaerobic exercises like bodybuilding, powerlifting, even CrossFit. Right. The purpose of this is by taking in large amounts of creatine, you're giving yourself the ability to do a little bit longer workout, a couple more reps. And there's also a couple of research studies that have shown that maybe it lets you increase the intensity of your workout. So creatine sounds amazing. It sounds like the god supplement, right? It's going to make you bigger, stronger, faster. You're going to be able to lift longer, lift heavier, and get huge gains. So what did all these myths come around that creatine is unhealthy and is dangerous? And also, does it actually do a lot of what it says? All right, first let's talk about kidney damage. So bear with me for this little ramble. So when we ingest creatine, it's absorbed, digested, used, and then excreted by the kidneys as creatinine. And one of the things we look at with regards to your kidney function is your creatinine clearance. So your eGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate, is a measurement of your serum creatinine clearance. So if you have higher levels of serum creatinine, that's going to push your GFR down, indicating maybe you might have some kidney function problems. Now, in a normal everyday person, eGFR is a great way to measure kidney function over time. If you don't lift weights, you're just an average dude or dudette, cool. eGFR is a decent way to measure that. However, if you've ever picked up a dumbbell, you've got higher than levels of muscle mass, eGFR kind of sucks. Because higher levels of muscle mass will have higher levels of creatinine and higher levels of creatinine serum clearance and all that jazz, which push your eGFR down. So it's very difficult with muscular individuals to say you've got kidney damage because you naturally have higher levels of creatinine in your bloodstream. Now, I've done a video in the past about muscle mass, eGFR, and creatinine levels, and basically the long and the short of it is I've spoken to nephrologists and internal medicine doctors who basically say if you've ever touched a dumbbell and you got increased muscle mass, eGFR is a really crappy way to measure kidney function in muscular individuals. There are better ways to do it, like a cystatin C test that I'll talk about down the road in another video, but really when it comes to big muscular individuals, you kind of have to go with clinical presentations. If you don't have clinical presentations of a lower eGFR or kidney failure, then you might not have kidney failure. It's not the greatest test in the world anymore. So what research saw was people who take a creatinine supplement had higher levels of serum creatinine and lower eGFRs, thus causing kidney failure. So creatine caused kidney failure. It was crap science. It's kind of been disproved in recent history, and even kidney associations will say if you're muscular and you take a creatine supplement, eGFR is maybe not the greatest for you. But back in the day, in the 90s, when this evidence started coming out, the news media ran with this evidence and said creatine causes kidney failure. And I can understand how they would have seen that, right? Higher serum creatinine, lower GFR, kidney failure. The problem is with no signs or associated symptoms of renal failure, it's difficult to say somebody's in kidney failure just because of that. And that myth has perpetuated for 30, 40 years. Yes, if you have a pre-existing kidney condition, stay away from a creatine supplement. That's going to boost your serum creatinine, bog down your already failing kidneys. That's a bad thing. But if you don't have kidney failure, it's very safe to use, and there's a lot of research that supports its safety in use. So what about weight gain? Yeah, 100% the point. So when you take in creatine, it gets shunted to your muscles, and that's going to pull water into your muscles. Your muscles are already about 75-80% water to start with. All right. So when you take in creatine, you're going to pull in more water into your muscles. That's going to make them look a little bit bigger, a little bit plumper, but that's where the weight gain comes from. It's just water retention in your muscles. Now, creatine is not stored in your fat. So if you take in creatine, you're not all of a sudden going to bloat in your tummy. Well, you might actually, because it can cause some GI distress, but your fat's not going to retain any of that water, right? Only your muscles are. So you might look to gain between 0.8 and 2.9% of your body weight in water weight, and that's all it is. It's just water retention in your muscles. They might look a little bit puffier, they might look a little bit plumper. That's kind of what creatine does. If you're on like a cut or you're about stage prep, a lot of people stop taking creatine a month out so they can pee out that water weight and look more dense and lean. But other than that, there's no real problem with taking creatine. That water weight gain is temporary, and you can get rid of it by simply stopping to take the creatine. Also, it should be noted that some studies show that taking a creatine supplement can increase lean body mass and decrease body fat percentage anyways, so it actually might be a decent supplement to take even if you are cutting down and wanting to look lean. What about hair loss? Right, this one kind of has a schmeck of research to it. If you have a predisposition to losing your hair, there is a very tiny amount of evidence that shows that you might accelerate that hair loss by taking a creatine supplement. Not everybody will lose their hair. If you even have a pre-existing condition, you may not even have accelerated hair loss. However, there is a small percentage of a chance that you might. So that one's on you if you're predisposed to hair loss. It's not scientifically backed 100%. It's not a guarantee, but there's a bit of evidence about it. Is creatine a steroid? No. Let me list you some steroids. Anavar, Winstrol, Equipoise, Trenbolone, testosterone. These are anabolic steroids that you can take. Creatine is found naturally in your body and in the foods we eat like red meat and fish. The reason that it's called a steroid, or people think it's a steroid, is sensationalism that we talked about earlier. People in the media turned around and said, oh, bodybuilders are taking it, it's anabolic, it's a steroid. And this misinformation has been perpetuated through the years with zero scientific evidence or basis, because fake news travels 5 times as fast as real news, and this fake news has been around for decades. It is ridiculous. However, no, I can promise you creatine is not a steroid. Lastly, you hear a lot about how when you stop taking creatine, you lose all of your gains. Well, no, you're going to lose all the water weight that you took in from taking the creatine. So if you put on 5 pounds of water by taking a creatine supplement, yeah, you're going to lose 5 pounds. Don't conflate that with losing muscle. You're just peeing out all the water weight associated with that creatine. So there's creatine monohydrate and creatine HCl. HCl is a lot newer and has a lot less research around it, but HCl is purported to basically have all the benefits of creatine monohydrate, but without the water retention. So if you are worried about that water retention and that water gain, you can take HCl. It should be noted that dollar for dollar, monohydrate is pennies and HCl is dollars. It's a lot more expensive, it's a lot less tested, but if you don't want that water gain, get the HCl. If you don't care, monohydrate is dirt cheap. One final note. Some of you are going to be what are called creatine non-responders. What it means is you can take in all the creatine you want, and you're just not going to get any of the effects of it. You won't get the water gain, you won't get the strength gains, you won't get the muscle development. It sucks, it's genetics. There's nothing you can do if you're a creatine non-responder. How to know if you're a creatine non-responder? If you don't gain weight, and you don't see any difference in your workouts, it's not doing anything for you. That's it, boys and girls. If you're truly still worried about creatine, talk to your physician, right? That's always the answer I'm going to give. Educate yourself. Go online. Look up scholarly articles on creatine use and make sure it's safe. Don't take my word for it. But if you're ever concerned about something or something doesn't quite jive with an Instagram post or a news article, research it, because I can make an Instagram post on just about anything, all right? I love when my patients educate themselves because I know that they are doing the best they can for their own healthcare and longevity, all right? So educate yourself. Read. That's it. Like and subscribe. Questions and comments down below. And as always, eat like a bodybuilder and train like a powerlifter.